Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to the Artist Commissioning Program Information Session. My name is Kelly Olshan. I'm Program Manager of ACP. And as we, get ready to get started and people mill into the virtual space, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Would love to hear your name, either if you're an individual artist or organization, and pronouns, social media handle, anything else that you want to say to introduce yourself, that would be great. So we're just going to give it another minute or so, and then we will get started. Hi again, everyone, and good evening. As I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Kelly. I'm a program manager at Queens Council on the Arts and have the privilege of overseeing the Artist Commissioning Program. Really excited to chat with you all about ACP and appreciate you spending your Tuesday evening with us. Before we get started, I would like to give my colleague the opportunity to introduce himself as well. Daniel?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this ACP info session. Thank you so much for being here. As Kelly was saying, I am a QCA Programs Assistant with assisting ACP, and tonight I will be monitoring the chat and also dropping some useful links as Kelly presents this info session. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Daniel, and thanks for helping out with the chat. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen so you can see a PowerPoint. And Daniel, if you could just kindly give me a verbal confirmation that you all can see this.
We can. Perfect. Full screen.
Great. So let me just hold on one second. Okay, hi everyone. If you are here, we are here to talk about the Artist Commissioning Program, which I will hereafter refer to as ACP. The session is for those interested in applying as an individual artist or a small dance organization. So if you're not an individual dancer, choreographer, or a small Queens-based dance organization, you are not in the right place. You are in the wrong place. That said, I invite you to check out other opportunities that we do offer through Queens Council on the Arts. I imagine if you're here, you know a little bit about QCA, but in case you don't, we are the Arts Council that serves the entirety of the borough through professional development, grants, commissions, education and residency programs to artists and arts organizations throughout Queens. In particular, I want to highlight our Queens Art Fund program, or QAF, which also offers grants to individual artists and organizations. So if you find yourself listening to this presentation and you think this really isn't the right fit for me, I would encourage you to check out our Queens Art Fund program, which is a little bit more all-inclusive and may likely be the right fit for you. Also, just as an aside, you can apply for both ACP and Queens Art Fund, even for the same project. So you can repurpose the same information for both projects. We've had artists that get both and then have more money. So we're here to talk about the Artist Commissioning Program, which we like to say is all about democratizing the art commissioning process. But before we dive in, let's define terms a little bit. What is an art commission anyway? The way that we provide a working definition is say that an art commission is when an individual or group pays an artist to create a new work for a specific purpose. And I think that specific purpose is the operative phrase here, and that in the case of ACP, slightly different than a grant in that we're giving out funds to support a specific purpose, in this case, to tell untold stories that fill a gap in American culture. What does that mean? We want to commission you to tell untold stories that fill a gap in American culture. So the spirit of ACP is about moving away from the tropes that are often represented in media and on stages into something more nuanced, more inclusive, and frankly, more representative of queens. So when we think about this concept, I'd like you to pause for a moment, shake off the mini Zoom meetings I'm sure you are a part of today, and just consider the following. What gaps do you think exist in American culture? What kind of art could you create to fill them? So hold on to this idea for a little bit, and we're going to return to it later in the session. So back to ACP. Because ACP is a quite nuanced and unique program, not your typical project grant, I'm going to build on concepts and ideas throughout the session. I might introduce something and then elaborate on it down the line with the insights. So for that reason, I just ask you to hold your questions to the end. We are going to have plenty of questions, time for questions in the end. That was intentional in the spirit of minimizing the amount of time I'm talking at you and giving you all plenty of time to, one, hear from an actual panelist from this year's session, and she'll be giving out advice later. And also Daniel and I want to make plenty of time to answer your questions about the program. So I'm going to do my best to keep the presentation component to about 30 minutes. And then we'll have plenty of time to transition to that. So if a question strikes you, I'd encourage you to write it down, type it up, and have it ready to go when we're ready to dive into questions. So with that, the Artist Commissioning Program democratizes the traditional commissioning process by enabling local community members or art commissioners to fill gaps in American culture. This year, we are going to focus entirely on choreography, dance, and small dance organizations to support projects that tell untold stories that highlight underrepresented protagonists. That's a mouthful, right? So that is the kernel of purpose, and we're gonna unpack all of that throughout the session. So let's zoom in on the operative words and phrases here. First is art commissioners, which is part of what makes this program unique. And we're going to talk about the role of those community-based panelists turned advisors in a moment. The second is that this year we're focusing exclusively on dance and choreography. This is a first for us this year, and it means more money will go out to support that discipline specifically. And finally, that funding priority about telling untold stories that highlight underrepresented protagonists, and we're going to unpack what that means as well. So first thing, I want to highlight that the purpose of this program, like big picture idea, is about democratizing what it means to commission art. So per usual, our artists say things better than I ever could. So I'm going to quote one of them. This is from an artist we funded last year, who said, when you think of commissioning, you usually think of rich people, kings, queens, the Vanderbilts, people with money and privilege. ACP is all about subverting that power, putting the power of commissioning into the hands of community members. So enter art commissioner. So as an ACP awardee, you will receive a host of things. The first is the money, right? So you will receive $10,000 or $2,000 commission to create a new dance work. And then you will benefit from the support of this dedicated cohort of art commissioners who will select your project and serve as an advisory committee and support system throughout your piece's development. So again, more on this later, but the idea is that we are putting the power of commissioning into the hands of Queens arts lovers. And then you will, as part of this, join this community of art commissioners that believe deeply in your work, as well as a cohort of fellow awardees. So 13 in all. And in addition to these funds, you will participate in a series of professional development workshops and art salons with this ACP community organized by QCA, and have the opportunity to showcase your new piece at an open rehearsal, as well as a culminating showcase at QCA's new headquarters in Long Island City in January 2022. Also just here, wanted to flag that an example of a professional development workshop organized by QCA is some training about how to create documentation that will enable your commissioned choreography to have a long life outside of ACP, or beyond ACP rather. Okay, so what is an art commissioner? What is the role of an art commissioner, and how will they support your project? So art commissioners are really what makes this program unique. So first and foremost, they are panelists. They are the people that are selecting you all, reviewing your application, and then ultimately making the funding decision. So they're going to select 3 projects to receive 10K and 5 projects to receive 2K, or funding out 8 projects total. They have already begun to convene. So then in essence, the program has already started with them, and they have been busy having thoughtful discussions about where the gaps are in American culture, what diverse stories they believe are not being told, and starting to brainstorm also about how they can support you. So once you all are selected, their role is to support and advise this cohort of awardees as you build out your commissioned projects, and participate with you in a series of commissioning workshops, artist selection panels, that's happening ahead of time, as well as the culminating showcase of your project. So I love to say that in 5 years, the money you receive from this program will be long gone. But it's our hope that these relationships that you build with the ACP cohort, these connections to local art lovers that really believe in you and believe in your work and selected your work, will last as long as your creative career. And so that is part of the benefit to the ACP. In addition, art commissioners are training how to commission art with QCA with the help of this new book that we wrote, and essentially are positioning themselves to become a next generation of art supporters as part of the mission to build out Queens as a place where artists are celebrated and supported. So this idea that we're supporting you all through these funds this year, but also trying to make Queens even more of a place that supports artists like you in the future. So big picture idea. So we talked about what art commissioners do. Let's talk about what they don't do. So art commissioners do not have one, creative control. So it's not an art commissioner's role to say, you need to have X answer in your work, or I want to see you make Y change to your process. They can have opinions and make kind, constructive suggestions. Several of them have dance backgrounds, so they could probably talk to you about your creative work all day. But ultimately, it's your project to manage as you see fit within the requirements of the commission, of course. And second, they don't have any financial obligations. The money is coming from QCA. They are essentially the decision makers, but it's not their role to be involved in your contract or anything like that. So rather, in summary, they're like a passionate community-based advisory team to support you and your work, hopefully long after the ACP formally ends. So what do you need to do to be eligible for this award? So I'm gonna first talk about nuts and bolts eligibility, like kind of straightforward things, and then I'm gonna transition into more less obvious things like here's what you can do to make your project really a good fit. So in terms of nuts and bolts components, applicants must be choreographers, dance artists, or small dance organizations, be Queens-based. So if you're an artist, we want you to live in Queens, current residence, not as an artist in residence, like not you're an artist residence at Flux Factory, but you actually live in Queens. And then if you're an organization, we want your business to be based in Queens. If you're an organization, you should have an annual operating budget under 250K. We want to support small organizations, have not received the ACP before, and then fit the project proposal guidelines. So enter more nuance. This is how to make your proposal a good fit. So your project proposal should do two things, essentially. So as I mentioned, ACP supports the creation of new work. Specifically, we're looking for work that defies the cultural mainstream, privileges underrepresented identities, and speaks to the cultural diversity of Queens by telling untold stories. There's a million and one ways to do that, but here's a couple things that your proposal should do specifically. So first, it should highlight the stories of individual protagonists. So individuals meaning characters, right? Humans, heroes, heroines, characters, so that if someone is watching your dance, it gives people a vision of themselves as leading characters. They see those who might be too often go underrepresented in dance or in art can see a vision of themselves as leading characters represented on the stage. So to further unpack what that means, what does it mean to tell untold stories that highlight underrepresented protagonists? There's a million and one ways to do that. Part of what's cool is that it's up to you to figure out how to do that in a way that's exciting and authentic for you as an artist. But in the spirit of clarity, here are some examples. Oh my gosh, every time I mess up the formatting here, please humor me. The ACP supports artwork that tells a story not currently visible in American art. So we're looking to highlight the narratives of those who too often go underrepresented. So examples may include the lives of Black Americans, Indigenous populations, and people of color, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, the LGBTQA+ community. The list really goes on. The idea is that the themes that are associated with your proposed artwork should reflect the diversity of the borough in a way that fills a gap in American culture and is true to you as an artist. So that's the first thing that your project should really do to be a good fit for ACP. And then the second thing is about replicability. So we want to fund work that is replicable or capable of being interpreted and produced for dance by third parties. So what this means is if a high school or a dance company wanted to do a production of your work, they would be able to do so. So the rudimentary and imperfect example that I like to give here is think Swan Lake if it wasn't a Eurocentric tale about rich white people. So Swan Lake is a dance piece, of course, but also it's documented so that productions of it can take place at performing arts institutions and high schools all over the country, world. Any entity can do a production of Swan Lake. And so ACP wants to make that happen for you, for your piece, only with stories that highlight people beyond the confines of the Swan Lake example, of course. So that is the thing we want to commission you to make. So it's less about it's not about creating a one-night event. It's about creating something that could be added to American culture. So that's what we mean when we say added to American culture. So ultimately, we are commissioning you to create a new replicable dance piece that can be reproduced throughout the world. And so we ask you to consider what materials would you need to create to make that happen. So this could be a series of how-to videos, stage direction, lighting notes. We're looking for commissioning deliverables is what we call it. And commissioning deliverables is our term for like the suite of things that you would need to create so that your work can be interpreted for the stage. And so to expand upon this, we want to fund work that's capable of being replicated, not just a one-time project or performance. So if it's something that couldn't be done more than once, it probably isn't a good fit for this opportunity. We're not looking for something that is just a one-time thing. It's rather creating something so that it could be scalable, so that it could be replicable, and investing in that documentation so that that's possible. So that is the heart of commission. We want to commission you to create the materials that would make it possible for a third party to stage a performance of your dance or choreography piece, with your permission, of course. Like QCA is not overseeing that process. It's just that is what we're funding you to do. And so again, it comes back to what would you need to do to make that happen? So for dance, it is probably most likely a series of videos documenting your choreography, how-to video, stage direction, lighting notes, all of the above. Like if LPAC, that's the acronym for LaGuardia Performing Arts Center. If LPAC called you and said, I want to do a production of your project, we want to add it to your season, what would you have to give them to make that happen? Provided that, you know, assuming that you're not physically there to make that happen. So we will be hosting a culminating performance of your work. Could be the whole thing, could be an excerpt, depends. But again, that's not the focus or the key mission of this commission. Ultimately, we want to commission you to create this documentation that would enable the piece's replication, and that's the core purpose of the ACP. All right, so what do you have to submit to apply? Enough of this esoteric concept, right? So to submit to the ACP, we ask for your bio or mission statement if you're an organization, your artist statement or program statement if you're an organization, information on your proposed work. So this is key because this is what you would get funding for. So we want to know all about your idea for a new work and how it represents an untold story. We ask for you to describe to us what you will create to make your work replicable, going back to that commissioning deliverable. You'll submit a budget. So if you're applying for the 10K opportunity, we want to see a budget at 10K. If you're applying for the 2K opportunity, we want to see a budget for 2K. Or if you want to apply for both, then submit both budgets. And in the event anyone in the audience is like, oh, I have to do 2 budgets. The idea is actually to, well, first I would recommend that everyone apply for both because it's pretty much the same amount of work. And then if the 10K will be a little bit more competitive. And so if you fill out the 2K as well, then if someone really likes your project, but we're not able to fund it at the highest level, we would definitely consider it for the 2K level. Also, it's hopefully meant to be prompt you to do an exercise that I hope that it prompts you to envision, okay, what does my project look like if it has this level of funding? And what does it look like if it has less funding? Because that, you know, it's not fun at first, but it actually can be a helpful exercise in figuring out what your priorities are and you know, sort of sketching out different iterations of a project. We want to hear, just through a short answer question, what your plan is to utilize the art commissioners as a resource. We're just interested in hearing your ideas. Mainly, this is about showing that you know what the program is, you did your research, and have some ideas as to how to engage them, either by asking their advice or engaging them in your creative process, so on. We want to see works in progress of your proposed project. This is optional, but encouraged. A common mistake here is people will submit a work in progress of something totally unrelated to the ACP proposal. Submit the work in progress of the thing you're asking funding for. And it's optional, but encouraged because we understand that you haven't gotten money to do the thing yet. So how would you have a version of the thing to show? So I would just, my response to that is, yeah, certainly don't spend a lot of money or, you know, crazy amount of effort to develop a work in progress for this application, but think of it more as just something to show the panelists, the art commissioners, a sense of your vision. It's just really helpful. And I've just seen in observing panels that it could be really successful and helpful in just giving people a sense of your vision. So even if it's rough, it doesn't have to be super polished. Like as choreographers, like if you have a 2-minute video from a rehearsal that's not in costume and you want to upload that, that's a great example of a work in progress. Then we want to see finally previous work samples. So this is your opportunity to show off your ability to create incredible finished polished dance. And so we'll want to see 3 minutes of 3 different videos of your dance work. Here I would recommend that you slice down the 3 minutes of your work that you want the panelists to see, either by uploading a file or, you know, submitting a link to Vimeo or to YouTube. One of my pet peeves is if people submit like an hour and a half of video content. Panelists aren't going to have time to watch that. If you do that, we won't disqualify you. The panelists will just look at the first 3 minutes. But this is an opportunity to be strategic, like show the 3 minutes that you really want people to see, to put your best foot forward. And then here, in the spirit of giving you a little bit of an inside tip, these 3 things that are have stars after them are the things that are really, I'd say, the most important. Like the bio and the artist statement, it's helpful background. It's not really going to make or break you, most likely. It's really that proposed work, replicability, and previous work samples that I would recommend paying like the most attention to in applying. All right, let's talk about the program structure. So the funding structure of ACP is that the top line thing to take away here is that we're giving out $40,000 to support dance. But to break that down a little bit, the art commissioners as a group will give out 3 awards at $10K and 5 at $2K, or individually. And so basically, as a group of 5, they're all going to select 3 projects to receive $10K, whereas each art commissioner will select kind of their individual pick, which will receive $2K. So if you're a person that is very visual and likes to see information that way, 1, we'd get along great, but 2, here's that same information kind of broken down in a different way. If this confuses you, ignore it. It's the same information, but just presented in a different way. But really what this is saying is that you have kind of these 2 means of commissioning art, 1 at $2,000 and 1 at $10K. And so you can see like these little purple squares on the left, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that represents an art commissioner. So for example, art commissioner number 5 will select 1 project to receive $2K, and so on. Whereas the other 6, 7, 8 will be a recipient of a $10,000 commission. So altogether, there will be 8 awardees. So hope that makes sense. The program calendar is as follows. For artists, this is a 6-month program that really starts in earnest in September of this year and then goes through February 2022. So in addition to the funds, this is really a professional development and community building program. And so artists are asked to be present for the following suite of dates. And to walk you through the calendar trajectory, you'll start out in late August, and that's when you will be notified as an artist. Panelists are convening in earlier that month. So you'll get the notice from us in August and then have a chance to be welcome to the program, meet your art commissioners that selected your project September 17th, and that will be in person. And then we'll move on to the commission launch and development. And if you want to follow the key here, if it has a star after it, it's a remote event. This will be kind of a blended in-person and remote program. So we'll enter into September for a series of art salons, which is a term that we just use to describe you coming together with your cohort of fellow awardees and commissioners to give project updates, show works in progress, have professional development events, bonds with your commissioners, and so on. So those happen about once a month, either on Zoom or at QCA. We're gonna have a work in progress showcase organized by QCA in November. And then going into the winter, we'll have 2 showcases of final projects featuring 4 artists at part 1 and the other 4 artists or awardees, rather, organizations included during part 2. And then for a final celebration in February. And I wanted to kind of, before we wrap up a little bit with my section of the presentation, just highlight a previous awardee in choreography. This is work by Guanglei Hui, in choreography from last year. His work is called The Silent Voices, which express the agitation and turmoil that characterizes the barriers to acclimating into American life. So The Silent Voices was a project that drew upon the artist's experience as an immigrant attempting to acclimate to America. And in his application, he used this metaphor of a silent scream. Quote, "A dream many people have is one in which they make an effort to scream, but are unable to produce a sound." And again, comparing this to the experience of those who are newly arrived in America. And so I wanted to quickly show a video of his work. One of the art commissioners, as part of her interest and role, wrote an article about each awardee, including Guang Lei. And so, can you guys still see my screen?
Yes, it's gray now.
Great.
It's gray.
So, oh wait, hold on a second. Let me just reshare. Yeah, so this is the article online. We'll share this link afterwards if you want to read more, but I just wanted to quickly play an excerpt. Okay, so you can check out more information on that later. But also an example of the kind of things that art commissioners often do to support the artists. Speaking of which, here we go. You can also learn more about our previous awardees at queenscouncilarts.org/ACP artists. And speaking of introducing you to the ACP family, I would now like to virtually introduce you to our cohort of art commissioners. So these are the 5 individuals who will be awarding the funding. I definitely encourage you to go online and read more about them, as one, they're very cool people and Queen's Arts champions, but also will be the ones reading your application and making the funding decisions. You can think about how one of the first things you want to do if you're being considered for a job is to read about the hiring manager. Use with the hiring managers. But in essence, this is an opportunity to read more about their backgrounds. So to that end, I'm really excited to introduce you to one of this year's art commissioners who has been so kind as to join us tonight. So you are about to meet Christy Cole, one of this year's art commissioners. Christy is a queer Queens-based performer and choreographer. They founded Christy Cole and Guests in 2019, the mission of bringing together artists to create powerful and thought-provoking interdisciplinary work. They've been the recipient of our Queens Art Fund Award, among other artist in residence programs and grants. And so with that, I am really pleased to introduce you to Christy. Christy, are you here?
Yes, hello, I'm here. Can you see me? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much for having me. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Christy. Really appreciate it. I think it's so exciting when you can actually introduce artists and applicants to a real live panelist. I would love to ask you some questions in the spirit of giving people an inside look into how to approach the ACP application.
Yeah, great. Let's do it.
Okay, so 3 questions for you. First question I'd love to ask you to speak to is just general advice that you have for the ACP applicants. Like if you were walking someone through how to best approach this application, what's your advice to people to help make their application stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really gave a very clear breakdown of everything that you're looking for in the application. But just to reiterate some of that, I think clarity is very, very important. We will be reading a lot of applications, and so making it very clear about what it is you're planning to do and also how you plan to accomplish it, so that we're not going back through and trying to search for all of those answers. Really put that at the forefront so we can see it. And with that clarity, I think trying to really paint a picture of what it is you're envisioning, like give us the information so that we can see, we can envision what it is you're talking about. I'll also go with feasibility of the project. Like, is this possible? And I think that goes back to the budget as well, with the 10K and the 2K, but looking at what's achievable, what's feasible, and how can you speak to that feasibility and demonstrate that in your application. I'll also say, you know, with this, we're looking at untold stories. And I think it's very important that it's authentic to you and appropriate, right? So that we're looking at, we want to make sure that the untold stories being presented are genuinely yours to tell and to share. And then if there are shortcomings in representation, that you address that and also look at how you're going to ameliorate that gap or work with that. So that we want to make sure that we're not stepping out of bounds with the stories that we are working to tell. I'll also say having a really clear budget, also like equitable budget. Something, you know, we want to make sure like you're not taking all the money just to pay yourself. And if you have collaborators, they're being paid appropriately. And that's a personal opinion of mine, but something I definitely look for in a budget. I just have a few more thoughts here. I think demonstrating how your project is unique or different from what we typically see funded, right? So this is an opportunity to say, this is work that we have seen funded in the past, and we are actually looking to do the opposite. We are looking for people who are breaking boundaries and breaking barriers and want to experiment, try something different. So paint us that picture as well. And give yourself space to like share who you are. We don't have a need for you to fit into a box of like, what is modern dance? What is contemporary dance? Like, we want to see who you are as an artist, what your unique voice is, and like what kind of art you want to create, not that you think the institution wants you to do. Two more things, one of which Kelly talked about already, which is clarity on how your work can be replicated. And then lastly, what is the deeper community impact, right? A lot of this, we're looking at Queens as a borough. How can the sharing of and the replicability of your work impact the community outside of just one performance or other staged performances? Yeah, so that's all I had for that question.
That was a really nice and eloquent synopsis of all the evaluation criteria. Thank you for that. You've also been an applicant, or sorry, both a recipient and a panelist with our Queen's Art Fund. So a lot of those suggestions are good for both opportunities. So what you were saying is actually a good segue into my next question, which is, when it comes to stories, what kind of concepts and narratives are you and your fellow art commissions particularly interested in? I know we've been having a lot of conversations about untold stories, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, firstly, I will try my best to speak to the group, but I am one of 5, and we are a pretty diverse group of individuals. But from our last meeting, we were kind of diving into this work and figuring out what this meant to us individually. And I will say that we all agreed that we don't have like some recipe or we don't have some preconceived notion of like, these are the untold stories we'll listen to and these are the ones we won't. We're very interested and open to and curious to hear and discover the stories outside of our own individual spheres and scopes. Yeah, so while we have our own individual interests, we are also keeping ourselves open and flexible to hearing what we don't know is out there and what you have to bring to the table with your application. I'd say, you know, rather we're really invested, excuse me, and in supporting and uplifting the stories that have yet to be told by voices that typically do not have a platform to share them. So with that, Kelly mentioned a lot of different groups of people, you know, BIPOC individuals, AAPI, LGBTQIA community, disabled community, elderly, people who maybe don't practice Eurocentric dance styles, more traditional styles. It's really very broad. And I know that we all, outside of how we present, have our unique stories and things that we carry with us. So I think that we're looking at people who can bring that and share it authentically. Sorry, I'm just looking at a few little notes. I may have gotten the questions in advance for you guys. Wanted to make sure I was clear. I think we're looking at, like, as we mentioned with Swan Lake, also like breaking outside of these ideas of what is dance through a Eurocentric vision. Giving you all as artists room to experiment and truly share who you are, and not be bound to what is considered like high art or what is usually funded and presented. Personally, I'm looking for interdisciplinary collaboration and experimentation, giving the artists room for risk-taking and breaking boundaries. We're interested in giving you all as artists a platform to share your stories as a means of like healing, right? And through that sharing of your work and having that platform to share these stories, that you and the community that gets to experience can heal. And it's another way that we can engage the community and move forward, giving light, giving power and support to these stories to take steps to move forward. Yeah, so that's what I have for that. Kelly?
Thanks, Christy. Okay, last question for you, and then I want to transition to take everyone's questions. How do you plan to support the selected artists and organizations?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to work with whoever is awarded. And I will say that we are very invested in uplifting and supporting your work as much as possible. And I think I described this in my interview for the program of like seeing it as an open door of as much support as you want, we want to give that to you. If you don't want us super involved, then we don't have to be super involved. Obviously, you have creative autonomy over your work. We will not have any control, or I wouldn't attempt to control your work, but we all would be very willing and are excited to be invited into your process, to ask questions and to give feedback where it's wanted, constructive questions, constructive feedback, you know, attending rehearsals, offering support for any outside promotional work or tech support, interested in like skill sharing. I recently had to transition an evening length show and gallery whole event into a virtual platform. So I'm happy to share my experience of that. And I know other members of the cohort have very specific skills that they are excited to share with you all as well. Yeah, and just in general, we're excited to support you, honor your autonomy as artists as you embark on creating your commission.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, so we're going to transition to questions, but before that, if you don't take anything else away from this, apply by July 12th. You can find all the info and the application at that link, queenscouncilarts.org/ACP. So with that, let's take questions. So I'm going to stop sharing screen, and both Daniel, Christy, and myself are here at your disposal to take all of your questions. I just want to invite you to drop any questions you have in the chat, and we'll just go in order. If anyone has to sign off at 7, no worries, you are welcome to email me directly if you have any questions that are really specific to your project. And also, if you all could hold questions that are super specific to your project, perhaps to 7 p.m., at which point I'm happy to stay and chat with you about anything that feels hyper individual or specific. But other than that, I'll be quiet, and by all means, let's hear your questions. So maybe Daniel, you could read out the questions in order, and then Christy or I could take them depending on who they're for.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So we have our first question. Potri Brancamanes, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, is asking, is the individual award of 2K be also in the 10K group organizational awardee? So maybe I assume like Potri Brancamanes is asking if the artists can have both awards.
Yeah, good question. So both amounts are open to both categories. So if you're an individual artist, you can receive 10K. If you're an organization, you're also eligible to receive 10K. It's based more off of the merit of your project rather than the category. You can't receive both though. It's an either or.
Then Kevin M is asking, our video samples are between 5 and 7 minutes. Is that okay to submit with the 3-minute limit?
Yeah, so the panelists are only going to watch 3 minutes. So if you submit a 7-minute work sample, they'll watch the first 3 minutes. If you want to control which 3 minutes they watch, then you can edit that down and submit that. Or you can simply put in the notes, watch, this section. But I recommend just go ahead and edit it down. I think that's the best, cleanest way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, Aston Waldron is asking, in terms of being replicable, does that mean screen dance or dance on film is out of the question as a dance form?
I'm gonna let Christy answer this question. As a dancer, you might have a better perspective than I do.
Yeah, my first instinct is I think that dance on film and documentation is a really great way to make your work replicable and also be able to share it low budget. Like once you have the film, you can submit it to festivals throughout the country and throughout the world and have it be shown and shared. I think a lot of platforms are doing digital and live as well. So in my opinion, I am into it. I would love to talk about what that means also, as well as what is the live performance versus what is just documentation, and having it actually be like a filmed version instead of just documenting a performance on a stage. And so looking at the distinction of, okay, is it a dance film or is it footage of your piece? So I think talking about that and how you plan to achieve that or do that could also be a part of your budget when you're talking about it, since I know that is extra costs to do that.
Thank you so much, Christy. We have another question from Trine Saxon. Again, sorry about my mispronunciation. For the work in progress video sample, it is okay to submit something from a residency work in progress showing where there were lights and costumes, or should it be more low-tech rehearsal footage?
If you have something higher tech, that's great, of course. Go ahead and submit it. I was more speaking earlier to try to reassure artists that we don't expect them to have something super high tech if that poses a burden. But yeah, if you have it, great.
Then Patricia asks, can you share the slide or review the timeline around awardee notification to program presentations and celebration? I will drop on the chat the link from QCA's website in a minute, where you can access all the dates that Kelly shared on the presentation. So I will do that right after reading the next question from Mark Nunez, who asks about work samples again. Some grant panelists have told me they don't mind evening length works as links and as specifying what time spans stamps to watch. Then they have access to more of the work if they are curious. What would the commissioners here in this case prefer?
Yeah, so I try to be respectful of panelists' time and also sort of equal opportunists for all of the applicants, and say they have the time to watch 3 minutes, 3 samples of 3 minutes, so 9 minutes, and that's it. But Christy, I'll let you weigh in on this as well.
Okay, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Kelly, but then I put myself on the other side as someone who's applied as well. Yeah, so I don't think it hurts, and if it is something that might actually help the applicant. But in general, I think be really specific about the 3 minutes you're choosing, and maybe if it's like a few seconds before or after, that might be included and finish the thought, great. But don't expect that the whole work will be watched. Maybe a little bit, but yeah, not the whole.
Yeah, I think the bottom line here is just make sure you follow directions. If we ask for 3 specific minutes, make sure to note those 3 minutes you want us to see, because otherwise it kind of seems like you just didn't read the directions and provide what we're asking for. It's like a little very administrative pet peeve of mine.
So we have more questions. The one I'm going to read now was sent it to me via direct message, but I assume that was by mistake. So Aurora Reyes Gil, she's asking if the proposed work can be replicated by other than high schools, if college dance programs or community dance programs also apply. And I would say yes, Aurora. So the high school thing was just an example to give you an idea of how the project, the artistic project can be replicated. But of course, we want you to, we want your piece, your project to be replicable in high schools, theaters, community centers, college dance programs, everything that you know your project can be. So we have more questions. So Soyun Lee Segredo asked, hello. This is Soyun Lee Segredo, founder president of Multicultural Council of New York, advocating diverse artists. Well, like she's just like introducing herself, like saying that she was QCA advisor last year. Thank you so much for being here. And then Nercy Rodriguez, she is thanking us for the presentation, and she says, I just wanted to clarify as far as the submission portion. My dance pieces also incorporate singing and acting. I remember asking before if I could submit a script for a dance piece. Can we submit some work samples that include spoken word or singing and or acting within the dance piece? Or is it just strictly only just dance?
Yeah, great question, Nercy. Yes, you can submit more interdisciplinary work. We have funded interdisciplinary work in the past. I would just, make sure that the 3 work samples that you provide collectively make a strong case for your ability to create a new dance work or interdisciplinary dance work in your case. And then also thinking about how the interdisciplinary component translates to your ability to replicate the work. So if your work involves songs along with dance, when you talk about the way that you would document your work, you would also want to include information about the way you're documenting those songs should another entity want to do a production of your work that's available. Also, we'll toss this to Christy because I know you're really interested in interdisciplinary work as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that with looking at dance outside of like just bare bones dance and a very like what is American dance and sort of like Eurocentric dance, it's breaking outside of it only being movement. And so what are these things that you're exploring through movement that also can be explored through your voice or through bringing in other mediums. So definitely, I think just speak to how those tie in, and then give us samples and examples of how you execute that, how it all comes together.
So the next question by Alexander Lichtenberg is about eligibility. And the question is, are hybrid performances or movement-based community workshops or engagements applicable? I assume like the question is if this is only about shows or performances, or if these kind of projects are also eligible for the for ACP.
Yeah, it's a good question. The short answer is yes, and we have funded projects that have a strong community-based workshop component. For example, last year we funded a work called Specially Processed American Meat. It was an interdisciplinary play. And as part of that, she did workshops with spam and cooking and so on that were community-based. But that wasn't but as part of her final commissioning deliverables, she turned in the thing that would enable this work to be replicated. So I would say the same thing here. Like, if whatever your final project is, the thing you're asking for funding for needs to be scalable and replicable. So often community workshops don't really fall under that category, but we have had ACP awardees do a community workshop in addition to the main commission in which we are funding them for. I hope that's clear. I also want to acknowledge that it's 7:01, so just out of respect for everyone's time, if you have to head out, absolutely no worries. Thank you for being here, and invite you. You're welcome to shoot me an email if you have any follow-up questions. And also, I'm happy to hang out and answer the rest of the questions as well, along with Daniel. But just wanted to say that if you have to head out, we will not be offended. Okay, I'm ready for the next question, Daniel.
Yeah, we have one more question from Walter Perez asking if will be the awardees also give rehearsal space?
Oh, I love this question. So this is news because we just finished up our new headquarters at Queens Council on the Arts, which means it's possible for us to provide some rehearsal space. Things are very much in, like, we just got the Wi-Fi code like yesterday. That's how new this place is. But I am definitely interested in working that out and providing some in-kind rehearsal space to the awardees. It's not something we can officially commit to right now. We'd have to talk about dates and details, but yeah, that's really a possibility, and something we would be excited to be able to provide.
And I see one final question, which is about length. So Young is asking if there is a suggestion of length for the final performance.
The length is up to the project, but you don't really need to worry about the logistics of the length for the purposes of the showcase. So for example, So Young, it sounds like, let's say you're doing an evening length performance that's 90 minutes and there's an intermission in between. We're probably not going to do a 90-minute showcase of the full work at QCA. Rather, we would fund you, the commission is for the artist to create that thing, and then we would probably host an excerpt of that at the showcase and invite lots of people from the city that you would want to see the work. And so we're not really, we're less interested in doing a full final showcase that necessarily exhibits the whole work in its entirety, especially if it's a evening length performance. And so in your case, there are proposed 90 minutes or however long you want it to be as the thing you want to make and the thing you want to document. And then you don't necessarily have to actually do a full production for ACP, if that makes sense. It's meant to alleviate your burden so you don't have to worry about producing the thing so much as making the thing and then getting people excited about the thing with QCA's help. And
that's all we have.
Yay, look at us all on time. All right. So if, Daniel, if you could be so kind as to put our emails in the chat. I want to say huge thanks to Christy for being here and all of your lovely, thoughtful insights and giving people a behind the scenes sense of what you're looking for. We'll be around. If anyone has other follow-up questions, encourage you to email us before July 12th. And we really look forward to seeing your applications. Get them in by July 12th at 11:59 p.m.
All right, well, thanks again and good luck everyone with your applications.
Bye everyone. I'm hanging out in case anyone has a really pressing individual question.
Oh, Kelly, this is So Young.
Hi, Soyoung.
Oh, I'm glad to see that composer joined today. His name is Jacob. Basically, as I have written to you, that my nonprofit organization is in New York State based, but I also have dancers who are based in Queens and composer who's based in Queens. So is that acceptable?
You said that your nonprofit is based where?
In New York State.
Where in New York State, though? Like not in Queens.
In terms of the address? Okay, it's Long Island.
Yeah, we could only fund Queens-based organizations. But if
okay, so when you're saying Queens-based means that organization has to be in Queens-based, and then dancers or original songwriters can be elsewhere?
the organization does need to be based in Queens, yes. So in your case, your nonprofit couldn't apply, but if the artist wanted to apply as an individual, they could certainly do that. The Queens-based artist could apply.
Okay, so if I have a dancer who has a company in Queens, she can apply.
Yes, or even just if you have a dancer that lives in Queens.
Yes, she does. She has her own company too.
Yeah.
Only thing is, it's kind of projects. She's a little bit rusty with the English, so is somebody who's applying the application process, can she has someone help her to fill it out? Because that's the things about the Korean communities. There are many different dancers, but they feel a little shy because they don't know how to write application.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue with so many different languages spoken in Queens. So QCA isn't able to provide individual assistance to applicants. That would kind of be a conflict of interest and also just in our capacity. But we certainly have artists that are English language learners will often work with someone else to assist them on the application. And if you're looking for interpreters or translators, you can shoot me an email and happy to provide some recommendations.
Okay, that really does help. That's why I waited until end to just ask you, because there may not be the cases about other attendees today. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Happy to help.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else on this call have any other questions, things that are about your individual application that we can answer for you?
Hi guys, I'm Mariana Parma. I'm sorry I had to log in late because I have a puppy who actually at the time of the startup of the meeting, I guess I can go on camera, right?
Sure.
Hi. I had a puppy who at the start of the meeting asked to go out, so I had to run out. So I missed a little bit of the meeting, and I know Daniel had answered my question because I have a script that was written by a friend of mine, but I'm also wanting to produce it. I just need funding for it. And it's based on live characters that actually have a history here in Queens. And that's why I'm interested, because I'm a Queens resident, and they're real life characters. And it's through tango that we want to tell the story, with also silent film, because the characters are Charlie Chaplin, Valentino, and Carlos Gardel. And they all met up in Silver Cup Studios. I mean, it's just, it's a very interesting way, and it also shows the relationship between the artists and also their inner conflicts, because they were also bisexual, and like they had all these relationships. But it's all on a script form. Is that something, I know Daniel, you said yes, but is that something that I could apply? Like, will this grant help me produce this? Although there's no, we don't have any material on film or video clips to show of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I answered yes because I think the project is exciting, and I am really looking forward to see how you tell that story through tango. So I think it is eligible, but maybe for the application, you could work a short video out to let the art commissioners know how this could be. And so it is, so we have all the materials needed for the application.
So when you mean like a video, you probably answered this earlier, and I'm sorry that I am asking it again. You mean like a teaser?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like we could put something together, like a choreography and a little bit of outline, and film it.
Yeah, but it's something a work in progress thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be something polished or finished at all.
Okay. Okay. And along with the script?
I believe that's up to you, depending on what you want to communicate and what you want to underline in that material, depending on the information you will provide in the different components of the application.
Okay. Okay, great. Oh, that's exciting to know. Okay, I think we could pull that off.
I just have a couple quick clarifying questions. So is the work still in development, or is it finished?
No, it's in development. It's not finished.
Great.
That's why I'm wondering if it only has to be finished.
No, it
No,
can
no.
be in development, so that's good.
Oh no, it's very in development. Like we've been, when I mean development, this has been a story that we've been, because I work with a group of artists, and we create our own work and stuff. We've been working on this project for like a while.
Okay.
It just hasn't, you know, to do it the way we'd like to do it, we need funding. And when we got close to getting funding, COVID happened, like it happened to so many artists. So we weren't able to get that backing that we were expecting.
Got it. Okay. And then when you say script, that you want to make a script, can you explain to me exactly what that means? Like, do you mean kind of
the script pretty much is written as a theater script, in terms of like a theater dance script, because it outlines all the sections, like scene 1, like section 1, 2, 3, act 1, act 2, scene 1, scene 2, like it's all written out, like it's
Got it.
It's there. It's just like finding the space to rehearse it, you know, and then to get an editor. But we have everybody, we have all the pieces. We just don't have the funding to support it. That's why I'm so interested in this, because when I read about it, I was like, oh my God, this is like I don't know, like a dream come true. We can actually submit.
Yeah, it does seem eligible to me, because I was trying to confirm that, 1, it's a dance piece, or at least in part, and 2, it's new work. And your answers confirm that it's both.
Oh, it's definitely a dance piece. The story is told through dance. And we chose these characters because they had a connection in real life. And it was the silent era going into the film era. but it's all through dance.
Great. And the last thing I'll say is when you figure out who will be kind of the lead applicant or like the liaison, like I imagine it doesn't make sense for your whole team to show up to ACP events. So you could just specify like maybe that's you, maybe that's principal choreographer. And we've worked with teams before, but just give some thought as to like who should be that core representative.
Well, I'm one of the choreographers, I'm one of the producers, but it's not my idea.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't think of this. Someone else thought of it and then brought it to my attention. And I was like, I want to help you work on this. Let's do it. And I'll be one of the performers in it.
I think it's up to you. Just whoever you think, you know, from the team would most like to participate in the program that way and serve as the best liaison for the group.
All right, that would be amazing.
Great.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll give it a shot. And then if we have any bumps on the road, we can email you, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adrian, Sarah, you have any questions for us?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I actually came in a little bit late. Sorry, we had to vote, of course. I'm actually a event host. And we give a lot of live performances, which means that I know a lot of dancers, and I was putting together a short play. So when I saw the grant, come out, I was hoping that I'm eligible because I have, the play framed out. And I live in Addislade Park, which is where all of the greats came from. And that history is being lost. No one remembers all of the, like the 100 famous people that came from here. So I wanted to tell a story through dance about the famous people that lived here, starting with Fats Waller all the way up to, LL Cool J. And it is something that can easily be duplicated.
Sounds great. What's the question?
Oh, okay. That was my question, if I'd be eligible, because I am not a dance, organization.
Oh, great question. Yeah. So what is your organization?
It's Queens Underground Film Festivals. I actually produce film festivals and poetry showcases and, networking events and all of those things. So because of that, I know a lot of performers and I know who dances, so-and-so and who could do poetry. I know all of I have all of the people. So I'd be the one who's writing, the script.
Honestly, I say if you're a Queens-based organization that's doing dance work, then you're a dance organization for our intents and purposes. We're not.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, you're an organization that's going to undergo a dance project and support dancers in Queens. You're based in Queens. So yeah, yes. I say go for it.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Sounds exciting.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.